So let's kind of jump in. I mean, just in the sort of masterminding sessions I've been with you over the years, where there's other people who, for a month decide to really concentrate on this, leaving people with the impression of increase. Mm-hmm. There are so many really very moving, beautiful, amazing stories from this. Is there sort of any that you can share or anything like that?
So I'll tell you a story of, that I actually read the story for the first time in this book, My Father Knew the Secret. This is a book by Brian Proctor. So this is Bob Proctor's son, wrote a book called My Father Knew the Secret. And, if you haven't heard of this book or you haven't got a copy of yourself for yourself, you want to get a copy of this. It's really a great, great book. But in the very first chapter there, Brian talks about his dad being in hospital. So for the last couple of weeks of Bob Proctor's life, he was in ICU up in Toronto in Canada. And he says his dad was in a bad way. Like his dad was in a lot of pain. His father knew he was dying. And, he says his dad was being prodded with needles, constantly the nurses trying to get a vein. And, but Brian says his dad was just not in a good space. And Bob knew he was dying, but he was not going to die in that hospital. And he obviously, the doctors told him, no, look, you can't go home. And he decided, no, I'm checking myself out. So he checked himself out. And the two guys who came to take him home, they wheeled a gurney into the ICU room. And as they come in, these two gentlemen, Brian, Bob's son, is sitting there. And Bob says to the first guy, or the guy closest to him, he says, what's your name? And the man says, Muhammad. And he says, wow, Muhammad, that's a strong name. And he says to the second guy, the guy behind him, he says, and what's your name? And this guy says, Torag. He says, wow, first time I hear that's a very unique name. And Brian's sitting there and he says, my father was so kind in all of his pain and his situation. He was so kind to these guys that made them treat him better. And he says something he'll never forget. So these guys, get his dad into the gurney. They get him, as they're moving him out of the room. He says he's walking behind these two gentlemen, pushing his dad. And Bob Proctor throws his hands in the air and says, Muhammad, Torag, take me home, boys. Now, think of this, Emma, because it really, if you understand and you read into it, he knew he was going home to die. Like he knew. What an attitude to have. Like, boys, take me home. Like, he knew he was going home to pass on, but that was his attitude. And yet, even in that, he treated these guys so well. Brian also talks about as they wheeled his dad out, all of the nurses and the doctors were all standing, lining up to say goodbye and touch him because he had treated them so well. He was giving them programs while he was, coaching programs while he was in hospital. He was constantly trying to connect people and obviously speaking to them, making them feel seen and heard. But I mean, think about that. Yeah, you literally at the end of your life, you're in unspeakable pain, discomfort, and yet you still take the time to acknowledge others, to make them feel seen and to treat them well. It's that's one of the stories that really my personal experience with Bob, the first time I met him, he really made me feel seen. Like it was at a training in on York Mills Road in Toronto. There was a beautiful hotel they called the Western Prince. I'll never forget it because they had this this clock, this huge clock on the outside of, when you pull up to the lobby. But it was flowers. It was literally a landscaped little garden, round thing with all these different colors with a clock in it. But anyway, the very first day I met Bob there, the Sunday morning, the seminar started on a Sunday morning. Emma, he came up to me in a room of about 300 people. And he had a one-on-one conversation, but he said certain things that only, someone who's really intuitive could have picked up. He said certain things that really made me feel seen. But Bob Proctor was the master at it. He understood that it was a universal need, that everybody, just wants to be seen.
Yeah, that's really, really beautiful. And incredible for somebody like Bob to lead the way and truly lead by example. I know you talk a lot about him giving, massive tips and various other things. And I think if you're always seen as this kind of, kind, positive, whatever it is, I think that can make all the difference. But also, I think we can be a little bit sort of unaware how much people will remember. I don't know what the percentages are, but there's only a tiny amount, isn't there, in what we actually say. There's much more in the intonation, in our. I'm really aware of my movement, the way we move, all of those kind of things. So, when we're walking into, for instance, an estate agent or a letting agent, or talking in a networking event, I mean, that's really sort of key. And I'm always kind of I probably overanalyze a bit when I'm in a networking event. But it's so key, those elements. And like you say, when you do hear the odd sort of positive thing, because of course not everyone is going to come and say something positive, the effects it can have on you, just imagine how that obviously affects other people as well. And that's what I'm always sort of thinking of. So even when, I had a bit of a challenging moment this morning, I was in a bit of a hurry. I was, one of those banking things. And, I had to really be quite controlled. Mm-hmm. Because, at the end of the day, it's not the person's fault on the end of the line. It's just a situational thing. But yeah, I think it's understanding the kind of impact without realizing. And unless you do these kind of exercises, which you've made me do many times, and it's now really very much part of my life, I don't really have to sort of think about it, but it's good always to be reminded, because, I'm sure there are times I could be better. But it is just such a natural thing for me. And my biggest one is to smile. That's kind of the easiest one. And then my second one is to always be present to people in restaurants or, cafes or things like that. And yeah, and that's a really interesting one when you suddenly start, getting a good table and all of those things start happening, which, you're not wishing for that. It just seems to be an indirect thing.
A local restaurant here, Christmas. Actually, there wasn't a booking for me. My aunt, I was trying to get a booking for her, and it could have been Christmas Eve or like a day or two before. So obviously they were fully booked. Emma, I promise you, I went up. I spoke to the guy. I said, can you make a plan? Just took some time to ask him a few questions and really connect with him. Boom! All of a sudden, I had an opening. I promise you can't make this up. All of a sudden, he had an opening. I mean, he obviously had something in his back pocket, but he thought he'd rejig the room or he'd change something here to make a space for me, just based on how I treated him. But most people, like you spoke now about going into a letting agent's office or into an estate agent's office or into that or to that networking event. Most people, when they walk into those events or when they walk into that office, their energy is inverted. They're thinking about themselves, Am I going to say something that's going to impress this person? What are they going to think of me? Whereas the best attitude to walk into that room with is an inquisitive attitude, to find out more about that person. And you want to be equipped with some really good questions. Like, I mean, if I were to meet you for the first time, right, Emma, and say, Emma, where did you go to school? Where did you grow up? Did you like growing up there? How old are your kids? Who's the apple of your eye between the three of them? What do you do for fun? Like, what do you do for fun? You can even maybe ask a bit deeper questions, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy would you say you really are? That's a bit of a deep question, but I mean, if there's a connection, you can ask someone that, right? And say, maybe I'm at the 6 right now. And then I'll maybe say, what's that 4 that takes away from your happiness? And, can you do anything to change it? But you can just ask questions, but really offer eye contact. Have some really well-prepared questions when you go to a networking event. Like, have 5 or 10 questions that you can ask people. And when you go to those events, stop thinking about yourself. Like, don't think about yourself. Prepare well if you're going to make a pitch. Make sure you're dressed appropriately. But once you step into that room, put all of your focus and attention on the other person and watch how people gravitate to you based on that. People just want to hang around with you because your energy is directed towards them. It's not what is the word I used just now? Well, it will come back to me. But your energy is not it's moving outward. It's moving to and through you in the way it should. It's not directed towards you. And that's why most people fall down with regards to public speaking, because they step up there and they're so concerned about what others are thinking of them. Stop thinking about you. Start thinking about the people in that group in front of you.
Yeah, I like that. I like, especially, property investing. Well, just life now. You have to get out there on social media as we're doing now. And inherently, I know the reason that we do this. I mean, obviously, I have some selfish bias here because I love spending time with you. But equally, I just know that this is so huge. For me, it's 90% knowledge. 90% mindset, 10% knowledge, because we can always find people. If you follow Think and Grow Rich, it doesn't really matter what your knowledge is, as long as you can access the knowledge of others. But inherently, it's the mindset. It's really being in that correct place. And so that's why I love sort of doing these things. But when I talk to the people about social media, most of them obviously are a bit like, oh, that's a bit worrying. But obviously I turn it around and say, what you're doing is really great, blah de blah. But inherently I always kind of finish it with, how inspired have you been when you've seen other people just a couple of steps ahead of you? And they always say, oh yeah, somebody wrote a post in Facebook the other day and wow, that was really amazing. And so I say to them, so I think you're being a little bit selfish if you don't share that story, because by you not sharing that story, there may be somebody that isn't inspired. Whereas actually you truly can inspire so many people. You might not know of a load of them. I mean, I'm sure I'm the same. I'm sure there's lots of people out there that I've potentially inspired that I have no idea about. But equally, for me, I've put it out there. So even if it's only one person that I can help or be an inspiration to, and that I believe is quite powerful. And they do suddenly sort of go, oh yeah, I suppose so. Now, not all of them go out there and do it, obviously. And for some, it's easier for others. But I do know when people have said to me, and even people really close to me say, oh, it's all right for you, Emma. You're really good at these kind of things.
Look, it's
no, that's not the case. I've worked hard to be like that, So
I think, sorry to break your word, Emma.
No.
For you and for most of us, right? It's when you started doing this, you weren't comfortable. You had to get yourself out of the way. You had to get yourself, like, if you've got information and stories, like you say, that's going to benefit someone out there, maybe one person listening to this right now, and it changes something, it's all worth it. But you've got to get yourself out of the way. People are far too concerned about what others think of them. It doesn't matter. And I mean, I'm not saying you want to be good to people, you want to treat people well, but don't give them so much power over you that everyone's opinion, you internalize it or you take it personally. Their opinion about you is based on their belief system. It's based upon their angle, their view, and that's fine. They're entitled to it. But it's not important what they think of you. What's more important is what you think of you. Do you have a healthy concept of yourself? Are you happy in your own skin? Do you feel you're putting out more good than bad? And if you are comfortable with you, that's great. There's no way you're going to please everyone. Like it's impossible. And like I say, treat people well, and let's do our best to try and help people where we can. But we can't be subservient to their opinions of us. And that's why most people don't step out and go onto social media and make a post or do a live video, because they just so scared about what others are going to think about them. Like, am I going to say the wrong thing? What are they going to think of me? All of this nonsense. Just, if you've got value to deliver, just get up there, put it out there, and,
I think I always go into it knowing I'll say at least something wrong. So that's fine. If you're accepting that something's wrong.
And speakers and teachers are realizing more and more, Emma, that the imperfection in you is actually what draws the audience in. Like a lot of people, they think, if you're going to step up in front of a group or an audience, you got to be perfect. Everything's got to be perfect. Your language, everything's got to... No, if you here and you make a mistake and what's that word, and you think of that, it's the human experience, and that actually makes people relate to you a bit better.